Marianne, Marianne and Jean, I'm sure you read it over, but feel free to ask any questions. All right, who wants to start, Jeff or Deb?
I'll start.
Okay.
First of all, how is everybody familiar with what we presented last fall for acquiring some funds to take care of the property that we acquired on King Street? I mean, Forest Avenue, at 64 Forest Avenue. It now has a name, the Drinan Family Conservation Area, because we bought it from the Drinan family. It was very good purchase for us, 4.427 acres, but it needs a lot of work. It's a buildable lot, but there is some wetlands that need to be crossed. There's a vernal pool, which is really great from a natural standpoint. There are some trees that came down before we acquired the property, and since we had that big storm in October of last year, many more trees came down, so that requires a lot of work. There are some wetlands that divide the property in half, so we need to build some crossings, I think by way of boardwalks, and then construct some trails, a kiosk to provide some information about the property. And since after we came before the Community Preservation Committee last fall, we had a meeting with DPW and found out that we can go from this property through some town-owned land by the dump to our other properties, 34 acres of land further down on Forest Avenue, to connect all of these things. Would make a great wildlife habitat viewing area. So
and that, just for Marianne and for Jean, on the application, that parcel is what you're referring to when you say the bread and cheese swamp, right?
Yeah. 34 acres? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Which is the property that we purchased from the White family a number of years ago.
Excuse me, Jeff, is this the one on page 8? That's the bigger yellow
Yes.
outlined one? Okay.
Yes.
And you're saying that it looks like sort of along that line, maybe that's town property that you can pass in order to sort of connect the parcels. Is that the thought?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And it's about between 600 and 700 feet from the top of the Drinan property to connect to Bread and Cheese. So it's it's not a terribly long trek. So the other, we presented some pictures. These are the same pictures that we presented in October last year, just to get everybody acquainted with the natural habitat that's out there and why we consider this a really good piece of property. So the work that we have to do, which I briefly discussed, was creating boardwalks, a kiosk for a map trail and information about the property, clearing some down trees. We have to do some surveying work, which we've done quite a bit of it, but we have to install some bounds, permanent boundary markers, some stairways to access the property.
Also, Jeff, that we need an entrance, a reasonable entrance from Forest Avenue, because it slopes off quite a bit to get into the property. So we'll need a little stairway or something where you enter with the kiosk there.
Right. So to do all of that, we're asking for $175,000 for the conservation restriction.
And I see too that you're soliciting potential of an Eagle Scout project as well.
Eagle Scout projects and also National Honor Society projects.
Yeah. As Eagle Scout, one of the projects was at the land off of Norman Todd Road.
Right, Ingram.
Yeah, Ingram Field and that, or Ingram property, and that boardwalk. That was I forget whose son that did that as an Eagle project, but that'd be good.
There were actually, I think, 3 separate, maybe 4 Eagle projects in there, crossing different wetland areas.
Yeah, Eric. No, buddy, you're muted. There, no. You're.
Here I am. Listen,
Yeah. I bet Carrie
apologies.
wishes there was a mute switch, huh?
My sincere apologies. I've been working for 15 minutes trying to get on board. Yeah, let me just say, there will be some Concom issues on this project. I think we discussed them last time. There are a few things going on which have come up. One is there's a state push to look more closely at vernal pools. There are many vernal pools in Massachusetts which have not been defined, which have been bulldozed over. And there's an effort now to define one and all vernal pools. Matter of fact, there's a project right now on Atlantic Avenue, which is almost finished, which is falling, it may very well fall or certainly be subject to vernal pool restrictions. And it came up at the last minute. Someone said, hey, it looks like a vernal pool. I checked the GIS map and this is exactly what a vernal pool looks like. And lo and behold, it's a vernal pool. So that's one thing. And we'll have to look at this closely. Can't do it now. You can't do it until probably March, April, because that's the life cycle of a vernal pool. Secondly, we've had a number in the last year of projects in the wetlands that have come in requesting walkways, and they have been turned down. Alteration of the wetland area, not well thought through. There are alternatives. So I'm sure the Concom will look closely at your proposal for building in any alteration in the wetland area. You know, we're continually reminded our job is to preserve and protect the wetlands, not to provide walkways for tourists to access them. And that's something that we're going to have to come to grips with on this project. Probably not a killer, but you may not get exactly what you want by the time you come out of the NOI presentation and all that. So I'm sorry I bring this up now, but I've been sitting here watching you for 15 minutes, not being able to say anything because I couldn't get on, but my apologies.
Well, I agree with your comment about walkways and stuff, and we've looked into that to do it in a responsible fashion. And there are a number, National Wildlife Service has a number of walkways and wetlands. One is down at the Red Maple Swamp in Eastham, which goes right through the middle of a wetland area. And it's expensive to do, but we understand that and to do it responsibly. And there's another one up in Plum Island. The Plum Island National Wildlife Refuge has a wetland walkway right through the middle of the wetlands. So it can be done. We wouldn't do it just by laying down planks.
Yeah. Jeff, I think my comment, it has been done. And as you well know, the Concom is a commission of 7 independent people.
I know.
Mary Ann knows, votes their own way.
Yep.
You may be very convincing for a few people and not very convincing for the rest. And there are walkways, there are many walkways. You see some in Wampatuck. Whether they would be put in place now in the year 2022, it's something we'll have to discuss. That's all. I'm raising a red flag, saying these are issues that we have to go through. I'm not trying to put cold water on the project. Your group does a great job, all right? I'm kind of coming in here now, having watched you for 15 minutes, not being able to say anything. But I just wanted to put it on the agenda so you know that these issues will be there, all right?
Sure.
And it's true, Eric. All that's true, having been on ComCom for 4 years. I mean, there's a lot of projects that we we're not supportive of, that we're going through wetlands, but they could just reroute some of that around some of those wetland areas. I mean, there could be a lot of other options that you do. This seems to be a large property. I had some questions though on your proposal. There were no actual quotes. And I just wanted to get some just understanding of what do you think it would cost to do a survey and to do some of this, building the stairwells, just so I had a better understanding of your expenses here.
Well, the survey is like $6,000.
Mhm.
And it may get in higher than that because the way they have to access the property, they have to bushwhack through a lot of the briars and things, and they get paid by the hour. So, it could be more than that, but I think that's what we anticipated it would be. The boardwalk for the Drinan property alone, we had estimated was going to be about $30,000. And the stairway about $5,000. And all of those was after discussing things with some engineers and also looking up online to see what estimates were for various types of organizations.
And the tree work has been estimated at $10,000. Again, it's a question of being able to get in there and, deal with some large trees that are down. But that's been in there.
We just, because of that October storm again, we did some tree work on one of our other properties. Because we took down some trees that were a danger to an abutter. And just for that abutter alone, it cost us over $6,000.
Yeah.
And then we had a
That
few
makes
other
sense.
trees that we had to take care of, which was a few more $1,000s.
Jeff,
So that stuff's expensive.
I assume that these trees you're taking down are in wetlands, or are they not? Or
They are
buffer
not.
zone?
Those
They're
are not, no.
Okay, because before you go whacking and clearing anything that's anywhere near a wetland or a buffer zone, you need to come to COMCON and have a discussion.
Well, I understand that.
Because
Yep.
we were into this all the time. Some guy comes in, oh yeah, I had to get in there, had to dig a pit to check out the drainage and all that. Well, the mere digging of the pit's a violation of the wetland regulations. And they didn't know it. Well,
Yep.
they said they didn't know it. So maybe before we go much further, we need to have a meeting and a walkthrough to decide what the protocol is going to be, because we don't want to run into loggerheads on this. We love the project. I love the project, and there's no reason to be have any friction here.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was on the Conservation Commission for 15 years. So I understand what the regulations are and what we have to do. And I know a lot of people say it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, but I'd rather get permission first.
Okay, good.
Jenny,
I'm still a little concerned about parking on Forest Ave. Is there any way to create parking within this area?
Not in this area.
How would you assure safe parking along that street and not be on somebody else's property?
Well, first, there are some side roads there. And we envision that a lot of this land would be used by neighbors. And there are also some cutouts along Forest Avenue. If you drive down Forest Avenue, going from east to west, there are cutouts on the right-hand side where people could park their cars.
That far away from the property, or?
I don't
just-
think it's terribly far away, no.
okay,
That is a dangerous road. It's really fast. There couldn't be a little driveway created, like even in these pork chop property a little bit.
Well, at the access to this property on Forest Avenue was only 50 feet wide. And there is I think it's a curved sidewalk. So you couldn't create a driveway right away.
people-
And, yep,
People would have to walk, park across the street then, basically.
yes,
Or, as Jeff said, along Forest Avenue where there are cutouts, or even as far down as the little parking area near that entrance to Wheelwright Park. There's some parking down there that,
Just seems like a long way for people to walk. And
Those are already utilized as well by the wheelwright.
it
people
is,
using
although
it.
I don't see it used nearly as much as the main entrance. I think a lot of people that walk in there live near there. I
Mhm.
drive by there quite a bit. I don't see too many cars there. But our main goal for this property would be pedestrian traffic.
And let's keep in mind too, that the purpose of them going to the property is to walk around and get a little exercise. So a little bit more is not going to kill them.
However, parking is that's a big
Yeah.
issue. There are two
Oh,
to
yeah.
three spots on a very busy road where no one slows down. So I think that is a concern to me.
I think people would be
Oh, no,
tempted.
I'm not denigrating the concern about the parking, but
I like this project. I
however
just wanna
far,
see how we can
however
make it
far
work.
it may be, I don't know it wouldn't deter me if I had to walk another half mile to be able to walk on a trail. But yeah, I agree with you on the parking. So parking's an issue here on Parker Ave. And I know Forest Ave, there's a lot of traffic and it's fast, so.
Is there a safe parking and access point through the bread and cheese property? It looks like it's at the end of,
It's at the end of Fox Run,
yeah, maybe
which is
not.
a tricky, it's sort of a private road
Mm,
where people do
okay,
not
yeah.
really park on the street. I mean, I think if you want to take a tour of this at some point, probably not right now while we have our new snow, but the topography right at this street is kind of steep. So it really is not, parking at the street entrance on Forest Avenue is not really a possibility. The buildable lot has an easement off one of the pork chops next to this property, but that would involve, I mean, if someone had built on this property, they would have spent a lot of money getting a road in from that easement, which all by itself would destroy some of the natural habitat.
Mhm.
And that's how they would have accessed it. And they could have, but one of our goals was to prevent that, since there's been a lot of development along this stretch of Forest Avenue and a lot of pork chop lots that, some of which service multiple houses with easements. But that's how the access to a house would have been. And I might point out that a lot of the vernal pool that we're talking about, and I'm not sure it's an official vernal pool, but it is a wetland towards the beginning of Forest Avenue, but most of the pool is on the next door neighbor's property. And we're fairly certain that to a large extent, a trail could skirt it to the left.
There's a buffer zone of 100 feet, Debbie.
I understand. No, I understand that.
We have a vernal pool expert named Tom Bell on the Concom, who is very, very savvy with the fairy shrimp, the toads and the salamanders and the wildlife and the flora that constitute. And at some point we should get him in there and just
Sure.
reference, because there are two things here. One is the state may not have it as a registered vernal pool. That's very common. All right. We may have it registered in Cohasset as a vernal pool, which is probably the commonest way for these things to come into existence. The state's being way behind and 101 other things to do. So, but if we got Tom involved in there with your one of the engineering companies, all right, who's an expert in these areas, we could sort it out pretty quickly.
Sure.
It's been identified as a vernal pool. It meets all the characteristics. It just has not been certified.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts.
you may have more, actually. That's what we're finding in Cohasset. They're popping up everywhere.
Could be.
People in the past just showed very, very little interest in identifying them. So, you know, say whatever it means.
Right.
So to go back to the lists of quotes for the properties, so I think you were saying, Jeff, that it was 6,000 for the survey, the boardwalk is estimated at 30,000, stairway is at 5,000, tree work is at 10,000. Was there additional work that you had estimated as
Right.
We had a figure for permitting, I think, Jeff, right?
Right.
I apologize. I got a computer issue going on and I wasn't able to print out.
Yeah.
the
Permitting
application Again.
was an additional $10,000. The original proposal that we presented last year totaled $70,000. Well, now we have more than twice that amount of work to do. If we're going to be tying it into bread and cheese. Bread and cheese surveying has already been done because we bought that property a while ago. And one of the things that we do when we buy property is one of the first things we do is have it surveyed and put in some boundary markers. So bread and cheese is already surveyed, but there's still the tree work. There are more wetlands in bread and cheese because remember that's 34 acres. And some tree work, which is why we increased the request the way we did.
Susie?
Oops, let me get back on there. I don't know what. I came up with 51,000 for the items that you were talking about, the survey, the boardwalk, the tree removal. How do you get to 175 for it? That's one question. And I think it would be a good idea to have more of a plan for what you're planning on doing. I'm taking Eric's comments very seriously. I know at a different meeting recently, he talked about fallen trees providing good habitats for wildlife. In other words, I'd like to see your forestry plan for it, and a little bit more information given to us. And of course, I don't think we should do anything until the conservation, is it Concom?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many cons going on.
Yeah.
I'd like to have their input before we proceed here in CPC. I'm sure we've covered all the bases. Another question I have is whether from the standpoint of the proposers, if this amount of money actually makes sense. What I've heard is that the primary users are going to be the abutters. I know you always have other projects coming down the pike. And I just don't know if enough weighing has gone into spending this kind of money in this particular area versus other ones that might be coming down. And finally, what plans are there for me? Should this go through and you get the bridges and the fallen trees taken care of, what plans are there for maintaining the property? I'm always concerned whenever we have, we vote projects, whether it's this or any other one, what the plans are for down the road to making sure that the money is not only well spent, but that the property is maintained. I know that's kind of a lot to say, but those are my concerns.
Well, I guess there's a lot of questions there. The trust is made up of 12 directors, and we're responsible for maintaining all of our properties. And they're all maintained. We have stewards for each of the properties, sometimes multiple stewards. We walk the properties. If there's an issue with fallen trees or litter or some other issue, we take care of it on a volunteer basis. So that's, I don't think that's an issue. The fact that much of the property or most of the property will be used by the neighbors. I don't think that's an issue either. That's often the case, except for maybe Great Brewster,
Yeah.
and maybe one of our other properties that has a lot of parking available. The properties are often used by the neighbors, or one at a time by somebody who can find some off-street parking. Ingram is a prime example of that. There's only parking available at the triangle between Beechwood
Sure.
Street and Norman Todd. But people use it and they like it. We can tell by the usage on the trails that it's used a lot. They go in, they walk their dogs, they go in just by themselves to, just get some exercise and walk through the property. So I don't think that's a problem. And also when we're talking about you going through a town-owned land, there may be parking available at the RTF, because that's how we accessed it when we went and took the walk there. So there are all kinds of things that are going on, and we already investigated the costs for doing the stuff on Dryden. That's how we came up with that. The original request was $70,000. There was a contingency in there because you never know what you're going to get until you turn the rocks over. And also remember that this is a request to get a conservation restriction to the town to keep this as open space. So although we presented some dollar values based on our research and stuff, that's what we expect to be spending on.
Thank you.
And I'd like to also point out, and thank you for bringing that part up, Jeff. There's an intrinsic value to the town and to the people who use it. So I would not necessarily look at it as just as a reimbursement for the expenses that the trust incurs. There's a general good to the public, whether it's the abutters who use it or not. It is open to the public, and they have every right and ability to access the property. So I wouldn't look at it strictly as a dollar for dollar. This is what it costs them, and some of this will probably go to future maintaining of the property. Could go towards future purchases of other property, but in the end, it's a good net gain to the town. Anyone else have a question?
I
Jean.
just wanted to
Oh.
address one minor thing that Susie mentioned with respect to the trees. We're well aware of the value of fallen trees for wildlife, and we dealt with this a lot this fall when we lost a lot of trees on several of our properties. But our goal is always to basically take down trees as necessary when they have fallen or they're threatening a neighbor or threatening someone walking on a trail we've created. And we almost always leave them on site. We cut them up and leave them on site.
Okay.
They would stay there.
Debbie, you people get very high marks for your handling of trees. We don't have that with Concom. It's not so easy in Cohasset as you go from project to project to see people wanting to keep deadwood on their property because it promotes habitat. It promotes everything that we want to keep lush and alive. But I'm sure you people do exactly what has to be done. So
We had to explain to one of the neighbors that we were doing our tree work on why we were going to leave some of them on site in the fallen state. It provides shelter for small animals. It provides a food source for small animals and insects. It provides nesting. They do a lot of things, and sometimes we just have to explain that to some people.
Jeff, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Jeff, a number of years ago when I was in Vietnam, I went to survival school, and the people there said, if you get lost in the jungle and you get hungry, just turn a tree over. You'll find your meal on the ground. All
Yep,
right. And
exactly.
that's exactly what we're talking about here, is
Right.
holding everything big and small in its natural state.
Yeah,
For me, I just need I think I need some more information about what you're going to do, the plan. I keep getting stuck at the 100,000. I can't figure out why the request is for 175,000. Is that what I understand? And it was 172,000, or did it
It
go
was.
up? Did I misunderstand that?
it was 70,000,
But now it's 175,000?
correct.
Okay.
Because we're looking at more than twice that amount of work. If you look at, just as one example, the boardwalk in the Dryden property alone was $30,000.
Right.
The boardwalk that we would create to get to Bread and Cheese, the walkway is at least twice that amount.
Okay.
And you're looking at length and the need for 2 boardwalks. And then that's an engineering cost on how to figure that out. And
Correct.
if you're going to be going through vernal pools or what kind of
Right. There'll be permitting.
COMCOM questions that will be. So
Right,
I think at this point, I would need just to see more from you, and just the parking is a concern, and just how, even though neighbors will probably be accessing this, maybe how perhaps you would put in a second, like one spot or someone that perhaps you're going to have steps, so it's not wheelchair access, but I would like to see more.
okay. Yeah, it's not wheelchair accessible at all because it's very steep.
Yeah.
If I may make a suggestion, I think I'm sort of along the similar lines of wanting more specification on the money. It sounds like you have the breakdowns, seeing it laid out, but to the extent that you need to go to COMCOM, which sounds like you do, and if that alters the plans, including boardwalks, the cost goes higher or lower depending on where that lands. It might make sense to come back once you go through COMCOM with a more finite set of plans, including the final numbers based on whatever you're told you have to do from COMCOM, which may change the amounts.
Let's not overlook the fact, though, that then we're going to start running into problems with town meeting. If we don't bring it to this town meeting, or we don't bring it until the fall, how will that affect your plans? There's a potential that we can make an approval subject to. We've done that before. One of the things I'm trying to do here is to see how we can make this happen. Basically, which is, I think, the purpose of this committee. If Jeff and Debbie, if this didn't go into town meeting until the fall, how badly would that mess things up for you guys?
Well, I mean, that's difficult to say. I would say right now. I mean, we want to get started on this, but it all, we don't have the funds to do this stuff. It takes a lot of engineering work. The boardwalk and stairway especially takes a lot of engineering work, and that's expensive. Doing the permitting work to go before CONCOM and get building permits is a lot of money. We figured the permitting was going to be $10,000, but I think it's going to be at least twice that to get engineers involved. So I think we'd be dead in the water if this didn't go before the Springtown meeting.
Okay.
So you need the money to even go through COMCOM.
Some of the money is just to get before CONCOM with the correct information and the engineering that might be requested, so that we can even find out if it will be permitted. Obviously, if the work we plan doesn't get permitted, then the money won't get spent, and could potentially be returned to the CPC.
Well, no, it's a common misconception that when we approve something, we give a check, and if you don't spend it all, you send us a check for the remainder. It's just to allay anyone's fears. In the event we make a grant, the money is not getting dispersed until we get receipts showing the work has been done.
So it could
so-
be dispersed as costs
Yeah.
are incurred.
When would the earliest they'd be able to get in front of Concom be, do you think, Eric?
Well, you can't get on the land right now, all right?
Right.
We meet twice a month, but I have to talk to Jeff as to how much work you have to do to get the NOI. I think you could probably get an informal request and get what I would call a feeling. And I would also say that I don't expect any great opposition to the project. It'd be a fine tuning of a boardwalk here and a boardwalk there, all right, as
Right.
opposed to a thumbs down on the project. That wouldn't be the case. It's a great project, all right? Jeff, you could have something in a month and a half, do you think?
How specific would it have to be? See, we have the plan, the plot plan that shows essentially the wetland areas. And also shows the vernal pool. It hasn't been, I don't think it's been flagged on site. It might have been flagged on site, but I didn't see any flags when I was there a few months ago.
You're probably talking 2 or 3 months, Russ.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, which,
You have to wait till the vernal pool wakes up.
no, I understand, but what I'm trying to get at is that we might want to look at this as something that we would approve subject to certain conditions.
I think that would be excellent.
The fact that it's going to take 2 or 3 months, if we wait 2 or 3 months, we might as well not even listen to it, because that's going to kill the deal. They're not going to be getting any money until they meet all those conditions. And, as far as the increase in the money, I can't think of more than maybe 1 or 2 in the last 12 years, proposals that we made that we gave people the money that they actually thought they were going to need, but we added a buffer of 10 whatever % with the stipulation that say they needed 70,000, we give them 80,000. The grant would be based on 70,000 or a maximum of 80,000 or actual costs, all of which have to be backed up by receipts. So there's a tight control on the money. I just don't want to tie them up to the point where it's not going to be feasible. And even, if we make this and they're not able to meet those requests or requirements, then it's not going to go any further then. It's not going to affect our ability to do any type of grants. The money would be set to the side, but at least they would know. It's very similar to with the affordable housing trust. The reason we've been giving money to them is, and you all have heard this before from me, if we go to town meeting and the next day there's a really nice piece of property that comes up that would benefit from our ability to have them pay for it, if they didn't have that money, we'd have to wait until the next town meeting. If we approve it subject to, or in their case, give it to them, they can act quicker than we can. And there's no kind of a group that we can take the money and give it to and say, keep an eye on Jeff and Debbie and then release it. But we can approve subject to. And we can, and we do all the time, make grants larger than the request. It's something that we've started, at least 10 years ago now. And it keeps us out of a lot of problems if people run short and they have to wait another 6 months or a year to go to town meeting again. So I think it's something to consider. Ginny?
Could we add a subject to a survey of potential parking and parking problems?
We can add,
Where would you park? Specific places people could park? The neighbors, just to get a better sense of that. I just have some
no, I understand.
questions.
And those are valid concerns. Yeah, we can add, we can add whatever subject twos we want. It's then up to Jeff and Debbie and the members of the trust if that's acceptable to them. So I would look at what's acceptable to us, put those requirements down, and then it's up to them to meet them. If they meet them, great, they can go ahead. And if it takes them 4 months to get in front of Concom, then it's not going to cause a problem that could cause the whole issue to fall apart. It's connecting some properties, it's our conservation properties, it's expanding, and I think it would be a shame for us to kick it down the road and see the whole thing fall apart. We have a solution.
Russ, I think approval subject to finalization of a plan by Concom is exactly the way we want to go on this. All right.
Yep.
And there may be some fine tuning with Concom, moving a walkway here, a walkway there, but certainly Concom, I can see no reason why they'd be opposed to the project. So let's go that route. All right.
Yeah.
Subject to.
Okay. Who else feels that way or has a question? I'll start from the one corner and work our way around. Gene, how do you look at that?
I think for me, I would just like more specificity on the money and how it breaks down. I think, having some quotes, some estimates, just so I understand, because I'm still trying to do the math. I think that would be really helpful because I do like to be precise when we're authorizing taxpayer and state money. And so that's important to me. That said, I don't have, sorry, Russ, I just want to get it out. That said, I don't have any issues with the property and I'm open to the subject to language.
Okay.
I do have concerns about parking and inviting illegal parking on Forest Ave.
Yeah, as do I. But I'm just trying to get this so that we don't make it impossible for this to be done. We don't need to take a vote tonight, but we do have, I think it's the middle of April, to get stuff together to be on the warrant. Which, I always tell the selectmen I'll be ready before the warrant's printed, and I never am. So, because we get stuff coming in at the last minute all the time. But we're working with a 6-week deadline. Can we get this part done in those 6 weeks? I'm not questioning anybody's concerns. What I'm trying to do is get a project which I think we all agree is a good one and make it as strong a commitment as we can on our part to not penalize them in any case in getting this project off the ground.
You want that answer within 6 weeks, Russ? Is that what
I don't, not necessarily the answer from you guys, where people want to get a better idea of the estimates. That's what I want. If people are, I'm going to use the term hung up, but I don't mean it in a negative way. But if the stumbling block is going to be getting estimates, then we need to see if we can get those estimates within that framework. If it takes Concom 2 months, well, yeah, it takes you 2 months. But we want to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed as best we can, and give them the assurance that if they meet all those criteria, then we'll be glad to release the monies. I'm not going to impose us on anybody else's deadline anymore, and I'm going to let another committee impose on ours. But although in a sense, town meeting does impose on our deadline because we're tied to it. So whatever time it takes Concom, I'm not going to rush anything. I wouldn't want anything rushed.
Concom will go through this once they have the document fast. All right. It's just a question of how long Jeff is going to take to get the costs and the project organized. I would think you could probably do it, Jeff, in 3 weeks. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, we have to talk to an engineer and
Yeah,
a wetland scientist.
yeah.
And I don't know what their schedules are, and I don't know how much that's going to cost. And we can front the money, but that would roll into how much the reimbursements that we would expect from the town.
Well,
here's where I stand. I feel like I just need more information, and just dealing with taxpayer money. I see at least 65,000 not being needed right now, and that would be the 2 boardwalks and the walkway. So that can come off the table, off the plan or the estimate. So, and then permitting or survey work, the engineer, I mean, maybe that's about 60,000 that you need right now to just kick this off. I could see that going, but the rest of it, I just need more details. But I feel comfortable with that.
That's mostly for the stuff on the Drynan property itself. With some extra money for doing some other plans for to get to bread and cheese. And what we want to do is create an overall project.
Right, but you won't need at least 65,000 at this point, because you won't be building a boardwalk yet, 2 boardwalks or even a walkway. But just to bring in an engineer and perhaps Cavanaro to do some field work, I think you need to get that and a plan written. I think
Right.
those funds of 65 or at least 60 of your 175 would be acceptable to me, at least to kickstart this, and then to learn more, and then see that plan that your engineer presents. And then, because a boardwalk has a lot of details to it that has to be evaluated.
Right.
That's going to take some time. Thank you.
That's why, Russ was talking about giving the money subject to getting receipts. If you approve the money, we can't get reimbursed until we do the various steps that we're talking about. But I'd be reluctant to say, okay, let's go for the 60,000. And then when we needed more money, we'd have to come back with another CPC application, which then means, the state would be looking for another conservation restriction, but it would all be the same project. So I think going with the subject to, as Russ was talking about, is a better idea.
How I'm looking at it, so of course I agree with myself. Although sometimes I don't.
I'm on your side, Russ.
I'm sorry.
I'm on your side.
Oh God, I am in trouble. The subject too, I think makes a lot of sense. And doing part of it now and part of it later, we're just creating more work for ourselves when we can do it all at one time and restrict the money as things are being done. The swim club, that's a 3-year-long project. If we were to do that year after year after year, God knows if they get the thing done, and it creates a lot more work for us. So my opinion is that we would look at it as a subject to this or whatever, and be very specific in it. They're not going to get the money if they don't do the work. I'm like I said, I'm trying to work with them and see this thing get done. Eric is just one member of conservation, but he seems to think it's a pretty good idea. And I think, there'd be some little details along the way that we can hammer out, but I'm hesitant to get half of the work done now and look at the other half somewhere down the road. Just my opinion. Susie.
I think the project is a good idea. I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Jean and Mary Ann and I would like to see is a breakdown. Now tonight we got some of those estimated costs, but they weren't on the application. And what we were presented with was $175,000.
I'm
Huh?
not
For
saying,
what? So,
I'm-
so what I'd like to see is an amended application. These numbers are fine that were given tonight. And a buffer figure, that's always fine with me. But just some idea where the money is intended to be spent, instead of just a
Yeah.
blank 175. And then we can work with it.
well, that's what I'm asking too. I don't, I'm trying to work within some time constraints here. It, I'm not going to approve anything, thinking that we're not going to have it, it's going to fall apart. But we've got a limited time for this to be done. We have just so many times we can meet between now and town meeting. So, I'm trying to accommodate both sides here, but under no circumstances would there be, and we can have, I'm not looking for an approval tonight. I'd like to see a meeting next week, honestly, because I got a couple other projects coming in. And sometime between now and first week of April, I have no problem if we meet 2 or 3 times. When I was on the Haggerty Committee, when we developed Mariners Park, we had a stretch where we met twice a week. I'm willing to meet how often we need to have this happen. I'm not willing to say, well, we don't need the estimates. We do need them. And I'm just trying to
That's
see
all I'm
if
asking
it's
for.
reasonable. Yeah, right. And all I'm asking for is, does this give them sufficient time for them to pull that information together and for us to make a vote? That's all.
But haven't they already?
Well, evidently not.
Jeff,
'Cause
haven't you
people are,
already come up with estimates? Because you gave us, various ones, what the survey was going to cost, the boardwalks and whatnot. So the preliminary work must have been done on that to come up with the 175. All I'm asking, could you present us with a more formal application with a breakdown for these items?
Yeah.
I don't care if you throw in miscellaneous.
Oh, you
as long as it isn't the whole
always
darn thing,
include a
but-
contingency. And I'll also include a traffic study in there, since people are concerned about that.
Sure.
So, yeah, we can revise it to put in some dollar values for each of these things.
I think that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I'm just trying to get this thing so we can get it, so they have some reassurances. Have you already passed papers on the property, Jeff?
Yes.
You
Yes.
have, okay.
Yep.
At the end of
I
last,
didn't want to have a nervous seller out there too.
No.
I had 25 plus years in the mortgage industry, and I know what that could be like. I'm just trying to see if we can figure a way where we can make this happen. I don't care how many contingencies we put on it, as long as they're reasonable. But I think we owe it to them to give them some confidence to continue to go in front of Concom, to go to wherever they have to go, knowing that in the end, they may not get the money they need to finish the project. That's all.
Jeff, I think it seems you have all the information. It's just a question of how it's organized. And then you have to highlight the uncertainty. You may say, there's a possibility there is a vernal pool other than the one we've indicated, and we'll be contacting relevant science in the next 2 months to verify that. There's a possibility that the boardwalk may have to be moved at a cost of such and such. In the next 2 months, we will verify that. If you list these various conditions and apply them to the project in the detail you have now, I think everyone's going to be happy here. And then we go ahead with Russ's approach, where we approve of it pending successful resolution of these issues.
Okay. Any other questions, or we'll go around the room, sort of? Be nice when we meet in person, won't it? Gene, anything else for us tonight?
No, on board, I think with Eric, Marianne and Susie about wanting the information breakdown to the extent you have any estimates, providing that, just so we can have things properly
Well, I think-
documented when we're.
I think- I think we all want that. I'm not so sure about Mike because he's got his microphone muted. Mike, yeah, I would not want to play poker with you. You can never
Mike-
figure out which way he's going to go. But,
Mike is still
I'm sure
smiling.
he will. That's right. That's right. But no, I think we all want to make it happen. I just don't want to keep jerking them around. Basically, if they, we want you to do this. Okay, well, now we want you to do that. Let's get it all out, make an approval, subject to or whatever, and get the thing rolling. Like I say, I'm beating a dead horse. If they don't spend the money, we're not going to give them any. Susie,
I'm fine with this route. We get a little more information on where the money is intended to be spent.
Okay.
I think the odds are excellent that will go along with it, subject to okays by Concom, and with the realization that things will have to be moved once they get in there. Nothing is in black and white, but I don't want to go before the select board or town meeting and be faced with a lot of questions that we can answer beforehand.
Mhm.
And I think we'll be able to. We don't have to have specific dollar amounts, but ballpark figures ought to be pretty darn good.
honestly, we probably will be a lot tougher on them than town meeting will. If you recall last spring's town meeting, we shelled out $3+ million in about 10 minutes. That's why it's really up to us to do our homework on it and make it happen. I'd be amazed. Even at best, you get 2 questions out of town meeting. Not to diminish what their value is, because if they don't go along with it, we're dead in the water. But I think if we do our share of the work, and again, I'm just trying to get this done in time for this Springtown meeting, just so we don't tie them up.
I think
Mary Ann, what you got?
I am all supportive of open space projects, and I love walking through the woods. So I just want to see more. I mean, I even had a question in my notes that the Boy Scouts were going to be doing this project. Is the construction really as high as we estimated? I just didn't know. So just need some more. I just like to do my due diligence. And
To answer that question, the Boy Scouts do the light work, clearing the trails and doing things
Mhm.
like that. Not installing kiosks necessarily, definitely not creating boardwalks or
Mhm.
stairways, things like that. They do some work that's really acceptable and necessary, but not the heavy work.
I think it'll be great to see that in just the next round of this, which we'll probably review next week.
I don't know if we're going to be able to do them next week because it's going to need a couple weeks, but in the near future, we'll leave it at that.
I have a question
Jenny.
about next week. Housing is going to be coming in with 2 proposals, but we're waiting for some revised estimates. And we,
Mhm.
of course, want to have it approved before town meeting. So question 1, when is town meeting? And question 2, how much time do we have? The last 2 weeks of April, is that the deadline for?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And when is town meeting?
May
Middle of
2nd,
May? May
Oh,
2nd.
so it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
May 2nd. And final
So-
recommendations on the warrant are April 8th, according to a schedule I'm looking at right now.
So if we need a meeting, you say you're going to meet next Monday, we won't be ready by next Monday, but when
No.
we are ready, can we meet? Or
Yeah.
how does
Well,
that work?
and if push comes to shove, and it's happened probably 10 of the last 12 years, and you look at some of the old warrants, it'll show that we're going to be presenting stuff at town meeting, or the approvals from advisory or the selectmen will be done at town meeting. But
We're working on it now. But
Yeah, but we got to get it into them. Because we still have to go to advisory, and we have to go in front of the selectmen. We don't have to go in front of capital budget because this isn't town cash. But we have, other committees that we need to appear
all right,
before.
I think we'll be fine, but I just want
I
to
mean,
be sure
yeah.
that we'll have a meeting so that we
Yep.
can get them approved by this committee.
Okay. I'd like to meet next week.
I'm not going to be ready next
No.
week, but
No, but I at the same time, I have no problem with meeting next week and the week after and the week after. Whatever we need to do to get it done, because, really come summertime and all, not a whole lot of heavy lifting going on in the committee. So over the course of a year, we're keeping ourselves pretty busy. So I'm just looking at that as time tables.
thank you.
Michael,
Okay.
someone's going to say something. Jenny,
No,
you all set? Okay, Michael.
I think been a good discussion. I'm glad to hear Jeff said that they'd look at maybe thinking about doing some analysis of the traffic. I guess I think it's a great project. I just think there's some inherent tension in the fact that, if you create kind of a gold-plated walkways and that sort of thing, you're either going to attract a lot of people, which creates a traffic issue on Forest Way, or you don't have, or it's just gold-plated walkways for a couple of abutters, which again, you question whether that's the best use of resources, really. So I just think there's some tension there, and it sounds as if Jeff and Debbie are going to have kind of think about the traffic, and I'm supportive at a high level of for the project, but I think that maybe some more details are needed to make sure that we're hitting the right targets.
Yep, I'd agree with you 100%. Okay, Eric, anything else?
Yep, Concom doesn't care about traffic. I don't care about traffic. I care about preserving a great bit of woodlands. The project's got to go ahead as quickly as possible. Let's do it. I'm sure Jeff and Debbie know exactly what they have to do now.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you too, Deb?
Yep.
Okay. So, well, next week, I've got the affordable housing people. Laurie's looking for some money, and Historical Society may have. Next week's too short a period for Jeff and for Debbie. Anybody have a problem with meeting next week? Take those other three out of the way and
Nope,
meet again a week after.
that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Russ, you're talking the next 2 Mondays?
At least,
Okay,
yeah. I mean, we may have more than that. I mean, I don't know why, other than human nature, but every year people will say, I'll go around and ask different committees, you got anything? Oh, no. Well, at the 11th hour, everybody's got something. So, yeah, we're going to meet at least the next 2 weeks, I would say.
okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
That's the 7th and 14th.
Let's see. Yeah, it's March, isn't it? 7th and 14th. Tomorrow's the meteorological first day of spring. So by then, we'll be able to walk the land in between too, if we get a chance.
I'm gonna go out and shovel some ice tomorrow just to prove you wrong.
It's got to stop sometime. I mean, geez, this has been I went to a school up in Maine. We had 180 inches one winter. This hasn't been that bad.
No,
But
you're right.
I defy anybody, you look at the lack of snowfall, and even people in my family who I always thought were rational, you still have people denying this climate change. Explain this one. Anyway, Jeff,
Okay,
Debbie, have a good evening. We'll see you
Thank
tomorrow
you, Russ.
walking the dog.
You will.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay,
thank
thank you,
you.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you all.
project.
We're,
Thank
we're
you.
looking,
Thank you.
we're looking at another dog, Deb. So.
Oh,
we-
good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Abby will be happy.
yeah, yeah, looking for an old one. So we'll see.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
You.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Okay, Mike, Mark, and Carolyn. Tracy, can you do your magic for them?
I just did. They're all coming in now.
All right.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing? You want to
Good.
introduce yourselves and we'll take it from there.
Sure. I'll go first, I guess, since I'll be leading the brief presentation or brief discussion that we have later. My name is Garrett Lubitz. I'm a member of the Town Hall Building Committee, and I'm joined by two of my colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hey, Mara,
Cameron.
And I'm Carolyn Coffey.
I love your bookcases, Carolyn.
They need a clean out in the worst way, but I just can't part. Look at the chair.
No,
Oh, well.
that's what it. You come over here sometime. Every flat surface either has a pile of CDs or a pile of books, or a pile of books with a pile of CDs on them. So.
Yeah, this is not unlike Town Hall before the document clean out, right?
Is Mike Barclay going to be with us tonight, or did we go a little
don't know who
long
that
and
is.
he bailed? Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. How you, Mike?
I'm good. How are you this evening?
Doing well. I don't know if you know all the members of the committee. Jean is obviously a selectman. Susie Wadsworth is with the Historical Society. Mike Dickey is a citizen at large. There are two others of those, me and Tommy Reardon. Mary Ann is with Open Space and Recreation, and floor is yours. Whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Can I just interject really quickly? I think we lost Eric Eisenhower. I don't know if he knew you had something else to talk about, but he signed off.
Ah, okay. Well, let's see.
And
1,
Jenny.
2, 3, 4, 5. We can still talk. He may be walking the dog.
That's true. Ginny too.
Yeah. Oh, Jenny too. Wow.
And Russ, just to interject, Mike Barclay's on advisory, just to introduce Mike.
Okay. We still have 5, so we still have a quorum, and we're not going to be voting on anything. This is a discussion. So continue.
All right, I'll just kick it off. So I think the last time there was a conversation between the Town Hall Building Committee and CPC, there was an expectation that Town Hall Building Committee would be moving forward with a vote on to secure funding for the renovation of the Town Hall at the spring meeting. Over the last few months, it's become apparent to our committee that that's not the best path forward due to supply chain issues, due to labor shortages, due to lead times to obtain equipment, and general price uncertainties in the market. And so we have decided to push out the approval process for securing the budget to a November meeting. So we're still moving forward with the project. We're still very invested in it. We're still going to be hoping to secure funding from CPC. The amount of that has not changed based off of our most recent estimates. It's still targeting around $4 million is what we see from the renovations that could be assigned to the old building. Now that hasn't been updated, so it's possible that amount could change, but I don't know if there's additional funding that's available or if $4 million is still the number that CPC has that would potentially be allocated to this project. So that's sort of where we are. Just wanted to give you guys an update so you understood, why we have moved off of the May date to the November date and give you an opportunity to ask us questions.
Okay.
And if I could just add the November timeframe from a constructability standpoint works much better because then it gives us the appropriate time to then begin to break ground in the spring versus going to town meeting in May and losing several months of good warm weather here in New England to be doing what we're going to be attempting to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for all those combined reasons, it seemed like the most appropriate decision to make. However, knowing that sort of it's been a historical path that more of the bigger, larger, important decisions are made at that Springtown meeting versus the interim meeting. In this situation, we do think it's appropriate and with enough notice, and I think that people can appreciate why we're doing that.
Waiting until spring.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No,
Well,
waiting,
we're not-
waiting until fall.
No, yeah, waiting until
okay.
fall so that we can ultimately break ground
Until spring.
in
Yeah.
the spring versus.
The thought
Um,
being we need to empty the old building, find a place for the employees to go, as opposed to we were finding ourselves struggling with knowing whether we could sign a lease on a building for the employees to occupy without having the funding yet to know if we were actually doing the project, all that kind of. So this would give us a few months to be organized, and potentially if the market continues to be difficult in terms of ordering product and everything, we can order product well in advance so that we can make sure that we have it on site when we need it so that the project goes smoothly.
Yep.
And in part of this, the intent is that this May town meeting this spring, that we would be asking for money for to bring a construction manager on board. That construction manager would help us put together the long lead materials, identify exactly what would be needed, and be able to procure those materials ahead of time.
As far as CPC goes, there are a few things that actually worked in our favor on this. I don't recall the split last time. I think we were going to put up like $1 million or $1.5 million. We've got that. We've actually got more than we did back then. And we were going to bond a pretty good chunk. This time we may, if there's an increase, we may have to bond at a little bit higher rate. But the things we have going in our favor is bond market's still favorable. And thanks to Chris and his staff, we still have AAA bond rating. So that may be an improvement. And also to offset any concerns people have about the bonding, the legislature has approved an increase in the funding that CPCs get. I think last time it was going to take about 20% of our annual income to pay the bond, and now it's going to take a lower percentage. So if anything, it looks more favorable just on a numbers basis than it did then. It'd be a good project, and you guys know we can only do the old part. I think, though, you can prorate some of the stuff. You may want to check on that, like your heating system. You're going to be heating the old building as well as the new. So I would look into, I don't recall how that worked last time, that was a while ago, that, whatever percentage of usage the old part's going to get, we should be able to include in ours.
How do the soft costs, the non-tangible items then factor in, whether it be the design costs, the owners, project managers, consultants, all the things of these natures that would essentially have to be calculated off of percentage base, either square foot percentage or cost of the project percentage between the two buildings. How does that factor in?
I believe that was prorated as well. It's been a few years, like I said.
Russ,
Yes, Susie.
I think in the previous plan, there were a lot of items that were put into the old building. I felt that they contributed more than they should have. But this new plan has, the old building will be used, which it wasn't in the first plan. And the last time I looked at these new plans, I thought the numbers worked out that everything that they were asking for really was attributable to the old building. And I think that was one of the I don't know if you call it a requirement that we put forth when the new plans started coming forward. And I'm pretty confident that whatever they come up with will be almost completely attributable to the old building. Am I right on that?
You are.
That's correct, yeah. Our intention is not to put heating systems in the old building and then assign all of the cost of the heating system to the old building, try to secure CPC funding by doing that.
And I want to say thank you for being very prudent in this approach, because now is not a particularly good time to go ahead and asking for money. Too many uncertainties. So I look forward to hearing you come back in the fall.
And the intent of the mechanical systems is that as many of those components that can be put in the basement of Old Town Hall will be put in the basement of Old Town Hall for real estate purposes, not because of who's paying for what. It's Old
Right.
Town Hall. The basement of Old Town Hall is really not going to be usable for any
Anything else.
inhabitable uses. So if we can put pumps and air handlers and equipment in there, then we're going to do that, because that then ultimately frees up that floor space in the new addition to be
Oh, yeah.
useful.
Yeah, the parts that are attributed to the old town hall versus the new town hall don't have to be physically located in the two different areas. I mean, that'd drive your costs through the
Yep.
roof. It's just as long as we have an idea percentage wise that we can operate with that.
So for us going forward, what's the best path in order? I mean, we're from an accounting standpoint, we are separating the costs from an accounting standpoint when we're doing our cost estimates, when we'll be working with some contractors as best as we can within the state laws here of asking it for accounting purposes. Dividing up the two buildings, naturally this has gone up in price compared to the asks of the 4 and 5 years ago when this first started, or in the 4-ish million was committed. How is the best way for us to ask? Is it based on should we ask based on the value of what Old Town Hall is going to cost? I mean, it's not, or is it, should we think that CPC would fund the whole component of Old Town Hall, or, we don't want to ask for too much, but we're very grateful from what we can get. But we just want to know the best way to approach it.
I would, as you get to where you need some figures and a feel for how we're going to look at it, give me a call and we'll schedule a meeting.
Okay.
We'll be as flexible as you need. We're spending taxpayers' dollars, and we want to make sure that we have happy campers on that end of the thing too. So yeah, when you get to a stage where you have a little bit better figure, or you just want to know, if we go this way, how's that going to go?
Yeah,
I have no problem with that. So
Okay.
we'll work closely with you. Okay, Jean, any questions?
I think I have the same questions that you all on the Town Hall Building Committee have in terms of how to properly allocate costs, including for purposes of ensuring it is in fact an eligible CPC project, so we don't get audited. And so I think it's really important to nail that down with such a huge project that we're grappling with to make sure we are complying within the guidelines. I don't know the answer. I have to look it up, to be honest with you. And I think what we'll also need to figure out too is making sure that going forward, let's assume the project is approved, that we continue to, have a, and I'm confident we will, because if we have a construction manager, we can appropriately document everything, including all the reimbursement and costs coming in the door. One thing that I will say is at the town's last audit last month, one thing the auditors highlighted was the need for documented policies and procedures from a financial standpoint. And so I think this would be one place where we really need to get on top of that in terms of CPC projects, both on the front side and the back side. And so trying to nail down what you're asking us, I think is probably one of the most important questions to make sure we set up the process properly from the start. That's sort of just my heartburn, and not heartburn, just question generally, to make sure that we're not going to have a material weakness or worst case scenario, spend money we have to return. And then I think the bigger question, which I don't think you know the answer to, is, okay, once we find that answer, what is in fact the actual request? Is it 4 million? Is it more? I don't know. I know you don't know either. So that's just my thought process.
Yeah, ask what you think is appropriate. If we don't agree, we'll offer you less.
Okay.
We may offer you more. It's been done before. So, don't be shy. And we won't be shy either. If we think you're spending too much, we'll say it. We're all grown ups. I think we can all, stand.
Oh, we appreciate that transparency.
Yeah. Oh God, that's the worst word.
or that honesty, or
transparency. It just drives me nuts. But that's how it should be. This is a major project. This will be the largest project CPC has done in the 20 plus years that it's been around. So, we're all kind of babes in the woods on this one, but I think I can speak for the other members. We will meet however often we need to make this go smoothly. As God knows, we know how it is when they don't. Jean, anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, Susie.
I'd just like to suggest that you'll know what costs are completely old town hall, the work that's done there. And as far as the work that's going to be used jointly, mechanicals, for a ballpark figure, could you do it on the basis of square footage?
it could be calculated out as square footage. Yeah, it could be calculated out as overall dollar value between Old Town Hall and New Town Hall. So there's a couple of different ways to calculate it, and I think to Jean's point, we just want to calculate it the right way. I don't know that you could calculate it a couple of different ways. Do you include the site work? Because the site work is all part of the overall package, generators, things of that nature. Or is there anything that's excluded from the calculation? And it's understanding what the rules are and playing by those rules. And that's really, it's nice that we're going to get money from CPC, but we just need to know that.
I think whatever you can legitimately call historic or maintaining or restoring the historic building, I suggest just go for it. And as Russ said, we can either say yes or no, but if doing a survey, you take the whole package, X percentage of that is going to be attributed to Old Town Hall, and that would come under historic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully in favor of the project, so I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it done. I'd like to see CPC give as much as is necessary, legitimately necessary, for the restoration of the Old Town Hall. And by the way, I like the design of the new Town Hall, but I'm far more interested in the old one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be tough because I work for a manufacturer's rep, and we rep doors, glass doors, flame resistant doors, and bulletproof stuff like that. And the costs, I mean, the companies we rep for now quote 30 days. Oh, good luck getting your project off in that period of time. So this has to be driving you guys crazy, but you know, we'll work with you on it. Michael, what you got for us?
No, I'm good. Sounds good to me. Obviously, all in favor of this project. So definitely want to help help the town get the town hall fixed up.
Yep. Yeah, because there's something in it for us too. One of the knocks we'll hear is, what do you spend on the town? Well, here's a chance for you to give us a reason and a good answer for the people who say you're not spending anything on the town. Yeah, well, here you go. Mary Ann, any questions?
No, I'm all set. I feel very confident that you will provide us the fine details from your construction manager, and I look forward to seeing what you'll be presenting. I'm in alignment with Susie and Jean and Russ and Michael. I think the town deserves a revised town hall. That includes the old and the new, and I like where this is going. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Comments? No?
Hey, Russ, can I just jump in real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, so just I guess an observation and then a question. So first observation is at the last special town meeting, some zoning articles got shot down, and one of the arguments was because it was the special town meeting, articles of importance shouldn't be coming before it, and it should be for the spring. And
Yeah.
I would hate to see that rationale be used, you know, around this discussion too of this project that, you know, is of importance and you know, obviously large dollar amounts. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of get out ahead of that so that, you know, it's not viewed that way at a special town meeting.
Oh, I fully expect that'll get tossed at us.
Yeah,
You know,
so that's the
this is-
first thing. And just the second thing is I completely appreciate I guess the hesitancy around costs and inflation, because it's out there. It's materials, it's labor, it's shipping logistics. I guess the question would be is if this doesn't abate though in the next 6 months, you know, are you still going to be, you know, at that time ready to go? Because I guess in my experience, even in low inflation environments, these projects only go up in cost the longer you wait. So,
Yeah.
you know, if all things being equal, regardless of the environment, 6 months from now, or you get approval, you're going to still want to go ahead with that and not try to wait longer.
Speaking for myself, yeah, you know, it's a project that needs to be done. Yeah, we looked at it once before, and I was very, very disappointed that went down when it did the last time. And as far as the special town meeting, first off, I don't know why they call it special town meeting. We have one every year. And well, yo, you've been there, Carolyn. It's town meeting. And I think the importance of it to the town, and you throw in the rising costs. Oh, yeah, you want to do it in November, or you want to wait until May and pay 20% more, which could be a conceivable number.
Those are great points, Mike. And I would say on the one, as far as the special town meeting, Kennard, it does, you make a great point, and it puts in mind that we need to make sure that we update everyone at annual town meeting so that it's on people's radar and they don't get surprised when we come back for a special town meeting. So thank you for that suggestion. That's great. And then secondly, yes, the idea would be to go forward. And part of the reason for the delay, as we alluded to earlier, was we've changed our way of approaching the project, where now we're going to hire this construction manager. And in order to best take advantage of the involvement of a person like that, you want them involved on the earlier side. So that stretches out our time frame a little bit. So that's, you know, it's not just the environment that we're in, it's that the environment that we're in is making us think that a better route for us is to have this construction manager involved, and that's why we're pushing it out. So, you know, we can't control the environment. We hope things settle down a little bit, but yes, we still hope to go forward.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
I would keep after the Mariner, such as it is, and get it on social media as often as you can, explaining to people what's going on, why it's costing this, why it's important to do it. You can't assume that everybody's going to think and see it the way that the 7 or 8 brilliant people here tonight look at it. So yeah, just keep pounding away on what a good deal it is, and you know, meet with us, and I'll match it on any of the social media things. It's just a matter if you publicize it enough. The problem with being at special town meeting isn't going to be that much of a problem in the end. So,
Thanks, Russ.
yeah. Okay. Anybody else have a question? Michael, you scratching your eye, or you got a question?
Just scratching.
Okay, that's allowed.
I have one last question relating to timing.
Mhm.
And this may be premature, but it does go into timing. Are you considering a debt exclusion for some of the remainder, which will have to go to the ballot?
It's your job, Gene.
That's, yeah. I don't think that's ultimately up to us.
Well, but it will affect timing at the end of the day.
That's not our
something you're
decision.
Thinking about proposing, or?
Well, again, it's, you know, I think that falls outside the purview of what we're responsible for, of how it ultimately gets funded. But I don't, I think that's up to the Board of Select.
Okay, well, just because.
capital
from a
budget.
Standpoint, yeah. That's gonna have. a downward-
We're meeting with capital budget next week, so.
So I think to what you're saying there is if it got approved in hypothetically, if the whole project got approved in a November meeting and it was going for debt exclusion, the debt exclusion wouldn't happen until the ballot, which means you're not starting anything in November. You're starting it after the ballot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I was just looking up the state law to see if there was a timing requirement on the ballot, which I can't research it quick enough, but I wasn't sure how that played into the timing aspect of what we're talking about. if
Yeah,
it
and
significantly affected it.
because it's something that was thought about. I mean, it's just how that, you know, again, because that does tie into it. But ultimately, I think it's between the Board of Select and capital budget to really determine how we best want to pay for it. What we can do as a committee is recommend and advise as to what it's going to cost in our budget for it. But ultimately, I think that decision is outside of our lane. And with that, we just got to understand the timing. But you know, to have this project be able to start early spring is a key component to the success and the cost. It'll in fact affect cost, because if we have to provide winter weather conditions and temporary heat and temporary enclosures to build the building, that'll drive up the cost
considerably.
So
Okay.
there is a motivation to keep that down and out of the scope if possible.
Gene, anything else?
Not for now.
Okay, Susie, you all
No.
set? Okay, Mike.
I'm good, thanks.
All right, Mary Ann? You're muted, but you shook your head, so we know what you meant.
No.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, thank you for coming in. Sorry it was a little later than I thought it would be, but you know, any landing you walk away from is a good one. But as you need to meet with us, don't hesitate. We're not tied to any schedule of how often we can meet. we can meet as often as you need us to. Okay?
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you for your time.
for your time. You guys are, it's a good committee, and I hope we get better luck than we did the last time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Have a
Good
good
night.
evening. Okay. Any member comments? Jane?
One thing that I have a few comments. I think it would be great if we could come together with a CPC plan. I know other communities do this to do some forward planning, particularly where we're thinking about a pretty large project coming up with town hall in the future. And, plotting out, for example, that large project. I think we're also going to have some large projects that are coming to you from the field study that the town is currently doing and hopefully finalizing within this spring. I think that's going to yield some very large requests as well. And so I think it would be helpful maybe to do that. So that's one comment that I have. Another comment that I have is I've asked our town manager to look into what the best process is for some of that due diligence once a project is approved. Like I told you, we just had our auditors come in, and one of the things that we're trying to improve are documentation and controls. Grantee contracts, for example, a lot of towns use that. We have brand new lawyers that represent most of Massachusetts, many towns. I want to say like half of the towns in Massachusetts. And one of the things they asked to see were our grantee contracts, which I think that would be a great practice for us to beginning. So I think that there's some improvements that we may want to consider, particularly because we have these new legal resources that have a lot of this already baked in for other towns that they're working with, which is a part of the reason we hired these lawyers, so we could essentially benefit from their expertise. So those are some of the things that, again, sort of came to my attention, and I was hoping that we could consider implementing some of that to help move forward, particularly when we're looking at some of these really large contracts or applications.
Yep. Okay. Susie?
No, no comments.
None.
Good
Okay.
meeting, though.
I'm sorry?
I said it's a good meeting tonight.
Yeah. Mary Ann? Any comments?
Nothing. It was a good discussion. I do see what Jean's saying. I've been referring back to other towns' rules and regulations just to learn my role better. So I guess we don't have one. So it would be helpful just in looking forward, particularly for a town hall.
Well, anyone who wants to work on that, I'm always willing to take volunteers. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, nothing we do is carved in stone. And we've changed some things. But the thing to do is bring things to my attention, and we'll take care of them as best we can. We've got a diverse crowd on the committee, and there's no reason why we can't do things for improvement. Is what we do perfect? No, I'd be the first to admit it. It's a matter of getting individuals who will work on it and getting that kind of time. That's all.
Thank you.
Yep. Michael.
I'm good. I will say, yeah, you're not perfect, but you do a pretty good imitation of perfect, Russ. So.
Oh, geez. Yeah. You need your glasses checked, brother. I've been on a lot of committees in town. I chaired the Haggerty committee that did the Mariners Park. I was one of the founding members of the Harbor Health Committee. I was on Government Island Committee. And this is by far the best committee in town. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Everybody, with the exception of you, Michael, me, and Tom Reardon, are already on other committees. And it's not like you're on committees that don't have a lot of meetings. You know, I mean, Gene kind of leads the pack in that one, because there isn't hardly anybody in town that gets more meetings than the selectmen. But this is a
There's
group
no
of-
controversy on the select board right now. There's not.
Yeah, well, there's controversy everywhere, you know. Dean of a prep school I went to had a plaque on his desk that said, "I wouldn't want to have lived if I could have aggravated somebody." So, you know, that's all part of the game, I think. But, you know, it's a committee that I've always appreciated the people being willing to input and take the extra time. And I try to reflect that in being flexible when we meet. You know, I'll call meetings based on your schedule. I can make mine fit. I attended a Concon or a advisory meeting 2 days before I had open heart surgery a couple of years ago. That's the only time that I kind of let my schedule interfere. But otherwise, you know, it's like I say, I'm honored to be associated with this committee. Anywho, favorite part of the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion
I'll
to
move that
adjourn.
we adjourn.
Okay, anybody
I'll
want a
second
second?
it.
Okay, I would say that's gonna be unanimous, right? Okay, have a good evening, everybody.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Russ, thank you,
everybody.
thank you for telling us it would be a quick meeting.
Yeah, I know.
I thought
yeah,
that
You
too.
know, I was kicking myself right after that. It's like the Sports Illustrated curse. You know? But, you know, it was a good meeting. It was longer than I thought it would be, but it was, I wouldn't change any of it. It's good discussion, good detail, and good decisions. So that's what it's
I've been
about.
sitting in my chair since 5:15 from another meeting, so I'm ready to stand up.
Well, do it slow. You don't want the blood rushing to your head.
Thank you. Good night.
And
Good night,
everybody.
Good night,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you very much. We'll meet next week. I'll send out an agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good
All right,
night.
thanks, Russ.
Night.